How's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Jim Burrows and Rik Offenberger, the creators of the book, The Agent. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing great. Well. Glad to have you be here with you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on for doing a double interview. We've only, I think this is the second one we've ever done.
Very good. We're honored.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So tell us, what was your inspiration behind the book, The Agent?
I've always loved comics. I started reading comics when I was 7, and at one point I owned a comic book shop. And when I owned my own comic book shop, that was when Valiant had started and Image had started, and it was just a really exciting time for independent comics. And I had actually created my own ash can. I've got 2 of them right here that we sold in the store. Oh, sorry.
Were they store exclusives?
Yeah, these were store exclusives. Now, I'd planned on printing comics and actually making them into comics, but unfortunately, I got divorced before that process happened, and that was almost 30 years ago. And so they just kind of languished. I have the ash cans. I have my original drawing for the character, and that was pretty much it. And, you know, I was writing for the Comic Buyer's Guide and for Newsarama and Comic Book Resources. So I was involved in the comic industry, but I didn't have a retail store. I wasn't going to the convention, so I didn't have a way to sell my own comic, you know, myself. And I didn't have an account with Diamond, so it didn't seem likely that I would publish my own comic. And I just let that go. And then Jim and Eric came into my life and changed everything. I was working with an artist who was doing some mock covers for me, where we were doing the cover but no comic, and I was writing little blurbs about what would you know, go in that comic, and it was just a fun fan project. And Eric says, you need to meet Gilbert Monsanto. And so he introduced me to Gilbert, and Gilbert is the artist who did our first issue of The Agent. And I hadn't planned on doing a comic. Gilbert just did some spot art for me. And while Gilbert was doing the spot art, he approached me with the idea that he could do the comic. And since I hadn't written a comic before, we could do it plot script, Marvel style, where I'd give him the plot and the page breakdowns, and he'd draw it, and then I could script it afterwards, and we could be a little free with that. And together we could put the comic together. And Jim and I had been working on doing some fanzines together, and I'd never published anything before and didn't really think that was a possibility until I met Jim. And Jim had all the know-how and all the ability, and I just had a few fanboys who hung out with me on Facebook, and we put together a fanzine. And once we were actually publishing something, the idea of actually publishing a comic ourselves seemed within the realm of possibilities. I started with the character that we had been doing as a fan character, but that had been so intertwined with other people's characters as we were just doing a fan project, you know, with other people's fan characters. Even though I trademarked the character, we didn't feel comfortable with it because there was some confusion. So we changed the character up a little from the first images we put together to The Agent, and so that it looked fully original. We wanted characters that were red, white, and blue in color. So he's white, and then he's got the red stripes, you know, represented on the chest right here from the shield on his chest exactly. And then he's got the American Eagle, and it's everything I loved about patriotic characters, from Captain America to the Shield to the Fighting American. Those all really, really appeal to me. And so, you know, with a lot of work from Jim and a lot of work from other people, we were able to put out a comic, and not just one, but while we were producing the first one, Alan had done some spot art for us. Let me grab that. And he had done this piece right here. And it was just a spot piece. It wasn't supposed to be a cover. It wasn't supposed to be a comic. And I thought it was really, really cool. And he said to me, well, you know, I can do regular art too. It doesn't have to be that super manga style. And so he did some regular art, and we were real happy with it. And so we produced 2 comics. And so we thought we were going to do the Kickstarter with both those comics, one from Gilbert and one from Alan. And then we put together the Who's Who, and Jim and I are wearing that on our shirt, the cover from the Who's Who. And if you can see that, let me grab the Who's Who from right here. And I've got, right here, I got a copy of the Who's Who. And so we ended up with 3 comics in our first Kickstarter. The Agent is the story of Simon N. Kirby, who's a 3rd generation superhero, and just 3rd generation FBI agent who's forced into being a superhero. In his world, all the superheroes are forced to register, but we don't have a civil war. Everyone just does it. It's part of the deal. If you want to operate as a vigilante, you have to license up, and if you license up, you're a licensed superhero. Now, Jim had created a separate world in role-playing, and he had his own superhero registration act with his own group, Falcon. And so we're going to deal with part of that in how they mesh together. And part of this is I wanted to do comics the way I liked them back in the Bronze Age and back in the Silver Age. And so he's a Silver Age type character. And then I've got another character, Sergeant Flag, who is the Marvel style character. His instead of being Simon N. Kirby, he's Rob McFarlane, and you can see the influences there. And it's a 90s style kick-ass character. And so I was having fun with that, but we're also exploring Jim's world. And Jim's world gives us a lot more depth, a lot more richness, because my world wasn't real fleshed out. I just had a few characters. I had Lynx that I had created 30 years ago, and my 2 patriotic characters. But Jim has a vast world of heroes. You want to tell us what you got, Jim?
Yeah. To parallel his introduction, I started reading comics probably when I was 7 or 8. I don't remember which, because I was dyslexic and didn't read very well. So it was mostly looking at the pictures. But suddenly I learned how to read all at once. I read volumes A through I of the encyclopedia the first year that I read anything. It was quite something.
Oh, wow.
And I found letters pages in the backs of the comic books, and I started reading them and found out that there were fans, and some of them had their addresses published. So I started writing to other fans and got involved in fanzines. So I read, Alter Ego and Fantasy Illustrated. I was really fond of Star Studded, and all these, early 60s fanzines. And so I've been a comic book reader since the late 50s. In the 80s, back when I was 11 or 12, I created several characters, and a couple of them actually make it into our universe. In the 80s, a role-playing game came out called Super World. It was part of a basic role-playing set. It was the role-playing game that George R.R. Martin got hooked on. You may know that he's wrote no fiction for about a year because he and his friends were tubing on playing Super World. And I met George once. He was probably 17 or 18, and we called him Railroad. But he was the author of one of my favorite fanzine characters, Power Man, in one episode. So a group of us here played Super World for a couple of years, and I was half the games master thing. I wanted to play, so I traded off with another guy. I'd run for a month, and he'd run for a month, and back and forth. Come the 90s, I decided I wanted to do that again, but our world was kind of a mess. We had some characters that we borrowed from campaigns and Villains and Vigilantes and Super World and Champions, and the world was a mess. So I started creating my own world, and I ran into a program called Hero Machine, which allowed you to create images of either fantasy role-playing characters, D&D types, or of superheroes. So I started making images of some of the heroes in this world that I was making up. I've got probably 300 heroes and 150 villains at this point. And I started putting together a sort of a campaign manual for the people who would be playing in this, and creating more and more characters. And I ran into the Facebook Shield G-Man Club group that Rik was running at the time. And the thing that impressed me about that group, I've been in a lot of Facebook groups, is that up here? No. If you joined his Facebook group for free, he would send you a 1940s style membership card.
That's so
cool. in the group, and pin back badges, good old pin back badges, which he made and sent out for free. And at this point, he's done them over and over again, so I've got a whole smear of them. But right. He just gave these away for free. Back in the 40s, when Archie Comics, or the MLJ, was running a group with the same name, they had cards and stuff, and all you had to do was send them 2 pennies, and they would mail you back this stuff. So Rik was saying, if you send me 2 forever stamps, I'll put them on an envelope and send these back to you. I thought anybody who would go around giving away things for free, because, well, basically, he was born too late and didn't get to join the original fan club. So he created his own fan club so he could be a member, and then let 200 other people join. And to me, that said, this guy's a fan, right? And so are these people. And then one of them created this ridiculously good pin. This is an enameled pin, a Cloisonne pin, pin back pin. He created 100 of them and gave them to Rik, who gave them out. So, people are just creating stuff and giving it away. And like I said, I started in 1961, 62 as a fanzine fan. I thought we should have a fanzine. Now, Rik may say that I had the expertise. I didn't. I spent 45 years in the computer field. I've been a Photoshop user for 20, 25, 30 years, something like that. When I was doing computers, the thing that I always said was that I had N decades, in the end it was 4 decades, of experience doing things I've never done before. I always liked the challenge of some programming or some architecture or building project where I would build something nobody had done before. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to learn, like 50 years. So I said, let's make a fanzine. And it was sort of like, my father's got a barn. Let's put on a show. It worked. We started to build it. And issue 1 is a decent fanzine. It's better than a lot of the ones I was reading when I was 12 years old. But it's not real pro. By the time we got to issue 5, I'm really proud of issue 5. It really looks good. And so I learned all of this. Rik gives me credit for being an expert. He was more expert than I was when we got started. I'm just crazy.
We're all crazy, which is why we are making comics.
Right.
It's an interesting business to be in. We started in February of last year, and our Kickstarter launched in September. So it tells you how long a process that is for all of us to get into to put that first issue out. Strangely enough, we actually had 2 issues finished by September. And so we're real happy with that. The first issue was kind of like a learning experience where we hadn't done anything before. So we were learning on the fly, sort of like the fanzine. By the second issue, I wrote it full script, and I felt much more comfortable as the writer, and I felt much more comfortable with what we were doing. That story is a story that is much more complete, and tells the story of a character called Murder Hornet. I had wanted to originally call him Protector, and I was going to put a pointy white hood on him and put him in all white. Pull it back just a little. It's a little fuzzy. Okay. Murder Hornet, but then I'm watching TV and they had the murder hornets that were invading and killing the honeybees. And as soon as I saw that, I said to my wife, nope, we got to make the character Murder Hornet. And so when you have a patriotic character, the best villains for patriotic characters were always the Nazis. So our villains are neo-Nazis in America. And so, we went with that story, and that's been a lot of fun. And we got the 2 issues out and a who's who. And so now we're gearing up for the next issue. We started as soon as we finished the first Kickstarter. First Kickstarter funded in 38 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So because doing 3 comics for 1 Kickstarter when we had started with 1 wasn't enough, we're doing 4 for Kickstarter number 2.
Are you doing issue 1? Or are you doing?
No. What we're doing 4 different comics this time.
Okay.
We hadn't really intended to do, the Agent number 1 and Agent number 2. It's still a little blurry there.
Yeah.
We had planned on doing Agent number 1 and Agent number 2 together in 1 Kickstarter when we started. It just kind of worked out that way. But since we got better at planning as we going into Kickstarter number 2. We were going to do 2 comics. We were going to do the 3rd issue of The Agent and first issue of G-Men 3 and 1. And in 3 and 1, it was literally the 3 of us producing 1 story each. So there's 1 story from me, 1 story from Jim, and 1 story from Eric. As we were going, I had thought about putting a backup story in The Agent. And then that kind of grew into a full comic of its own, which we're calling G-Men United, just like Justice League United, where it focused on, everyone was a member of the Justice League, but it would focus on just a small group of those in each story. And so in G-Men United, we're going to do a variety of stories with our characters. Jim, you want to talk about your story?
Yeah. Rick mentioned that one of the reasons we got together and ended up putting his characters and Eric's characters in my world was because he and I both had the idea of a superhero registration act. Well, it wasn't entirely original with us, but it was built into both of our worlds. And in mine, it's a lot softer rules. His is very hard-nosed. Everybody must register. And if you're registered, you can be drafted into the G-Men and the agent can call you up and off you go. In mine, it was a little softer than that. And so one of the things that gives us is a bit of a tension. So the way that we resolve this difference in the way we had envisioned it is my organization, Falcon, which is a federal organization that's supposed to take care of dealing with supervillains, superheroes, etc., has a much more laissez-faire, softer version of their interpretation of this law. The FBI has this really hard-nosed one, which means we end up with the possibility of my Falcon and his FBI being in conflict. So we didn't actually have to resolve which way does this go, because if you look in the real world, different parts of the federal government believe different things about what the federal law says. So we have this conflict, and so in G-Men United, kind of one of the key features is it's a little bit G-Men disunited. He has a story where there's a very conservative character and a very liberal character, and they have very different perspectives on how conflict happened, like the movie Rashomon. In one of mine, his agent, who is used to this FBI, you were registered, I can draft you, tries to draft one of my characters, who looks at him and goes, "What's the matter with you?" No, I'm not playing that game. And so it allows us to explore our different visions by making them both be true, right? And the real world is conflicted like that. So in both his story that starts G-Men United and mine that finishes it, there are two more in between. In both of them, we see conflicts between people, yet teams that work together despite the individual conflicts. So there's this theme that runs through G-Men United. United is actually an active verb. They are becoming more united in our stories. And so that's the story I'm writing in there. And it's really based on our two different versions and our two different histories of the characters that come in. We're also doing G-Men 3-in-1. And for it, each of the three of us, Eric, Rick, and I, contributed a 7-page story. And we each used our red, white, and blue character. And my red, white, and blue character is, in our universe, the son of my red, white, and blue character that I played in 1983 in our role-playing game.
Cool.
and he's kind of a bad boy, and he's a thief and a hacker who got arrested and thrown into prison, turned into a confidential informant, and then the people who ran his father as a superhero realize who he is, and they give him his father's outfit, and he goes from villain to hero. I've been writing novels, and I have this novel. It's set in a superhero universe. It's called, I suppose it's fuzzy, I'm sorry, but it's called The Demon Priest. And the cover is done by Gilbert Monsanto. And here's a bit of a spoiler, everybody. He ends up in prison too. So I had my two characters meet in prison. So they're two superheroes, but they're both in prison and having a conflict there. So we're having fun exploring, some of the light, some of the dark. We both have I have this gold and silver Bronze Age approach. He has this late silver bronze and later viewpoint, because we're slightly different ages. But it's in all of them, it's the hero, not the anti-hero style of superhero comics. But just because you're not dark and gritty anti-hero style doesn't mean you can't explore conflicts between the characters and contradictions within a given character. So we're trying to do that.
And where can where can people pick your books up currently? Is the Kickstarter still running?
No, the Kickstarter ended in September, at the end of September, and then we shipped in October. And so our artists are currently working on the next Kickstarter, and we were planning on finishing at the end of the year with the art and then start launching the Kickstarter momentarily. But one of our artists got COVID, and I also got COVID. And this slowed down the process slightly. So we're probably going to launch on February 1st, but don't hold us to that date. because we got a little bit to do between the time the art's done and lettered and the time that we put together everything for the Kickstarter. But that's our soft projection date, would be February 1st. If we missed that, we'd hold off the whole month till March 1st. You can, there should be a link at the bottom of the video for our website, g-man-comics.com, and we'll update there. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. We're really looking forward to this. In my 3-in-1 story, we're following Sergeant Flag in a search and rescue mission, and he actually rescues the characters that are going to become Lynx. And back 30 years ago, Lynx was just one male character, but we're redoing them as a couple. And so in this issue, he's going to rescue one of the members. And then in issue 2, which will be the issue after that, we'll do the full Lynx story. So it's kind of a undercover secret origin, because you never actually get to see Lynx in this story. You just get to see them in their civilian identities before they are so traumatized they want to go out in the streets and fight crime.
Wow, y'all doing a lot of world building. It's awesome.
We have a lot. Go ahead.
It started with world building, really. Rik built a world in the 80 some odd covers that he and Mitch did for his faux cover project. And I've been building since the late 90s a world that was intended for role playing. So I wanted lots of characters, and my characters go all the way back to the pulp era and up to today. And then I went off and wrote a novel about a demon priest.
Demon priest, is that on the website also?
It hasn't been published yet. This is a copy that I put together for proofreading and for beta readers to be able to read. I'm going to be self-publishing it. I'm now looking at how I'm going to do that.
Okay.
40 years of experience doing things I've never done before. Well, I've never published a book before. I have two. I'm trying to flog one to agents, and the other one I'm going to self-publish, and I'll learn from making mistakes. We're doing fulfillment through a print-on-demand printer, Kablam, and they've been real helpful to us. And we kind of like to do printing through. They have an online store, Indie Planet. It's a really excellent source for indie comics, and we would like to publish there. But the way we set up our pricing structure for the Kickstarter, which allowed us to finish as quickly as we did, has them a little bit more pricey than the average comic in the store. So we have to work out how we're going to work it so that we're not undercutting our Kickstarter customers, and not looking like we're seriously overcharging it at Indie Planet. So we will probably in the next year or so evolve how our comics are made available. For now, it's only through the Kickstarter, but that gets us going. You know, we're going from 0 to 4 comics. You know,
Right.
And the artists need to get paid. There's no question about that. And it takes them a decent amount of time and to do the work. And so we're funding through Kickstarter to pay our artists. And so far, Jim, Eric, and I haven't really seen any money. It's all been to the artists. But over the long haul, we think we'll do fine. And we also are going to be offering the first Kickstarter comics again in the second Kickstarter and so on, so that people will have a chance to get them. I mean, somewhere down the line, we'll be looking at alternate distribution. But we don't want to tell our customers, oh, don't get our Kickstarter now, wait and we'll offer it to you for less money. And it, because the prices we're charging are the reasonable prices on Kickstarter. It's the same prices everyone else is charging for their comics on Kickstarter, actually probably less. Right. In cases, because we did some beautiful variant covers. This is a Steve Butler variant cover, and let me see the other.
Yeah, now you get the file over to review. I was looking through the books.
What's awesome, the Steve Butler cover, and we didn't charge extra for the Steve Butler covers. Most people charge extra for the variant covers with the artists. And we were able to do a contest on Facebook where you could submit your cover, and whoever got the most votes, we printed their cover as a variant, and they got a copy.
Wow.
So that worked out nicely, and you got published comic work, and it was all fun. And so, we're trying to make this reasonably priced in Kickstarter. It just doesn't turn over to be reasonably priced at Indie Planet yet. And so we have to figure out how we want to work that. We don't want to reduce our page count, you know what I mean, to make this a lower price product for Indie Planet. And then if we did, then it wouldn't be reasonable for Kickstarter. So we right now we have 2 comics. And with 2 comics worth of comics, we really don't have enough to do anything different. After this next Kickstarter, we'll have produced 3 more comics, and we'll have updated our Who's Who, so we'll have 6 comics. Although we produced, 7, the Who's Who will be just an updated version. And so we probably, after we've done our 3rd Kickstarter, we'll have enough back issues to actually talk to someone about doing something different. That maybe we can get it out a little more because we've got enough product already finished being produced, and we've got a variety of different marketing ideas, but that's long term, so that may not actually occur until 2022. For 2021, we're hoping to get out 2 to 3 Kickstarters, and so we also produced trading cards.
That's cool.
All of our characters, and we produced some mini posters. And this is the agent, and this is the agent in Sergeant Flag, and this one's upside down. This is Lynx, and so I don't know if you can see him well. It's kind of dark.
Raise it.
Yeah. Okay. And so we were happy with that. We've got different ideas to try, and we produced the T-shirts. The T-shirts Jim and I are wearing were part of the Kickstarter. We had 4. Let me step back. We had 4 T-shirt styles available. And so, the fans who wanted the T-shirts got the T-shirts. Fans who wanted alternate covers got alternate covers. But really, we just wanted to get our stories out there. And we wanted to get people to be excited about it. And I had some trading cards from superheroes, and I liked the Marvel Universe trading card. I'm not a big trading card guy, but I like the superhero trading cards. Yeah. And so we wanted to produce those ourselves. And since we were producing a Who's Who anyway to give people a catalog of our characters, the Who's Who and the trading cards kind of dovetailed together. It's the same image on the page of the on the front of the trading card that it is on the page of the Who's Who. And the text is just a condensed version of the text in the Who's Who. So we were kind of able to do both together. Yeah. And it was cool because we were able to introduce characters in the Who's Who and in the trading cards that won't appear until Kickstarter 2.
Okay.
So I gave you kind of a sneak peek.
All right, I'm going to have to cut you off there, gentlemen. Thank you for both coming on. Is there anything you want to tell everybody really quick before we go?
Just that we're trying to build a fan base, and one of the things that will happen if we can build a fan base at the Kickstarter prices is we'll be able to pay our artists more readily, and that will be what helps us get the price down. So we are thinking about it, and we just need to build that fan base. So we're really grateful to people like you who review the comics and interview us. So thank you very much. This is very much in keeping with what we're trying to accomplish. And we're doing it from the heart. It's not making us money at the moment. And, you know, we got together because he was giving away stuff for free, you know.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We'll have you back anytime that you would like.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.